Hi, I'm Marta from travelfortaste.com, where I share simple recipes from all around the world. And today I will share with you a recipe which I learned from my grandma. The famous Polish pierogi are those soft dumplings which can be made with a whole variety of fillings, savory or sweet. I'm going to share with you two of my favorite ones. The savory dumplings filled with mashed potatoes, cottage cheese, caramelized onion and black pepper. And as a sweet version, I chose the simplest of all, pierogi with blueberries. These Polish dumplings are really not as difficult to make as it might seem. I've previously made them with my family and friends, and it was always very enjoyable and relaxing time that we got to spend together. And in this short tutorial, I will show you step by step how to make pierogi, and I will share with you a few tips and tricks which will make it easier. I will start by showing you how to make the dough, then I will focus on the fillings and on how to actually form the dumplings, and in the end I will show you a few delicious ways how to serve them. But before we start, know that as always, all of the ingredients are listed in the description box below the video, but to see it you might need to click on this Show More button. Okay, let's get started. To make a perfect dough for pierogi, you only need flour, water, salt and a tiny bit of oil. I like to start by mixing the ingredients in a bowl, but at first I only add around 2/3 of the flour so that it is easier to combine all of the ingredients. This way you first obtain a soft and very sticky dough to which it is very easy to add some extra flour. On the contrary, if you start by adding too much flour and you end up with a dough that is too hard, it is very difficult to add extra water. Once I see that it all starts to come together, I transfer it onto a clean surface and using my hands I knead it while adding a bit of flour when needed. And I do it for a good 8 to 10 minutes. At the end, it should be soft but not sticky. Now it is very important to cover the dough and let it rest for 30 minutes at room temperature. And during this time we can prepare the savory filling. Here you can be pretty flexible with the proportions of the ingredients. I encourage you to simply try the filling and adjust it to your taste. I used 750 grams of potatoes, which I cooked, 2 chopped and caramelized onions, and I seasoned it with salt and pepper. I have already added salt while caramelizing onions and cooking potatoes, so I only needed to add a bit of extra salt. But make sure that you try the filling and adjust it to what you like. I mash it all a bit, and next I add 300 grams of Polish cottage cheese. I'm very lucky because near where I live there is a big Polish grocery shop where I can easily buy it. But you can also replace it with a full-fat quark, Philadelphia cheese or a riccota mixed with 2 tablespoons of sour cream. Again, mash it all together and adjust for salt and pepper. And that's it, the filling is ready. Now let's check on our dough. After 30 minutes rest, it will be much easier to roll it out. And the best pierogi are made with a very thin sheet of dough. I love to use a noodle machine because it makes this work much quicker. But don't worry if you don't own one. I will also show you how to do it without. So if you are using a pasta machine, simply roll the dough out into a long white sheet. Start rolling using thicker settings and then gradually make it thinner and thinner. Ideally, it should be less than 2 mm thick. And don't forget to sprinkle it all with flour to prevent sticking. Now we're going to cut out circles. Bigger circles will make bigger pierogi and therefore these will make the work quicker. I chose to use a champagne glass because it has a large diameter and a relatively thin edge which makes cutting easier. Now, if you don't have or don't want to use a pasta machine, you can of course do it with a rolling pin. In that case, I find it easier to do it little piece by little piece. Again, try to make it as thin as possible. Okay, it's time for the fun part. Let's form the pierogi. Here I have for you a few tips and tricks which will make it easier. First of all, make sure that you put the filling on the side of the dough that was facing down, because it is less dry and it will be easier to close the dumpling. You want to put as much filling as possible while still being able to seal the dumpling. It is important that the filling doesn't touch the borders, otherwise it will prevent it from properly sticking. I use a two-step closing technique which I learned from my grandma. First, I bring the two sides together and starting in the middle, I close one side and then the other. Next, I do little pinches to make sure that the dumpling is properly sealed. Now, when it comes to pierogi with blueberries, it couldn't be easier. I simply put inside a teaspoon of still frozen berries. Of course, you could also use fresh fruits. When I'm done shaping a dumpling, I put it on the surface which I have generously sprinkled with flour. This way it can safely wait until cooking time. And once all the dumplings are ready, I let them simmer in a salted water. It is important not to crowd them, there should be only one layer. Also, make sure that the water is not boiling too strongly so that the pierogi don't tear. Once the dumplings reach the surface, they need about 2 minutes and they are ready. A nice trick my grandma taught me is to put out the cooked pierogi onto a plate smeared with a bit of oil, which will prevent them from sticking. I like to have my savory pierogi with some Greek yogurt and chives. You could also add some freshly ground pepper. And my favorite way to eat the dumplings with blueberries is with sugar, cinnamon and some melted butter. Since I don't feel comfortable giving refined sugar to my toddler, he eats pierogi with cream and maple syrup. The way he loves pierogi, it is clear he has some Polish blood running in his veins. I hope I have inspired you to give it a try and to make some Polish pierogi. And definitely let me know in the comments if you did, or if you have any questions. And if you would like to stay up to date with all my newest step-by-step recipes, do subscribe to my channel and click the bell so that you are notified where my newest videos are out. Thank you for watching and see you soon. Bye!